What's up, guys? Four-wheeler doctor back again, working on this little 420. When we did the drive shaft independent rear suspension conversion on, it's got a little rattle to it, so I'm gonna adjust the valves, show you guys how to do that, and I hope this camera looks good because I left my other camera at the house and just got this new phone, so I figured I'd give it a shot on here and see how it works out. It might look like I'm looking kind of cross-eyed because the camera's over here and the screen's over here. But anyway, I'm sorry. I'm gonna take this thing apart. It's already somewhat tore down, as you can see, but everything's here as you would on a normal bike, other than the side covers that you would need to take off. The side covers to get to the valves. So I'm gonna start pulling some stuff off. I'll cut the camera on in just a second. When we start getting it tore down. Alright, guys, I kind of got most of the tools together you'll need. 10 millimeter, I use that impact, it works real good. I got a big half-inch drive ratchet, 3/8 inch drive ratchet. You'll need this Allen head to get the timing hole open. It's a 6 millimeter. Also, I use a little stubby screwdriver, but you don't have to. It can just be a Phillips screwdriver. 10 millimeter wrench. You'll also need a 24 millimeter either socket or wrench. Take your seat off. That's to get the timing holes off there. And then a filler gauge. Hadn't got that yet, but when I get to that, I'll tell you what sizes it needs to be. You want to do this with a cold engine. The valves, the clearance changes on them as the motor warms up, but works better, a whole lot better on a cold engine. So first order of business, take the seat off. You'll also need to take these side plastics off. They just kind of pop off. This bike is missing the plastic cover that normally goes over top of the motor here. So pretty much just pull this cover off here. It had some push pins in it all the way around, where this one don't, because this only got half the plastics on it. And then we need to remove these two 10 millimeter bolts, one here and one here, as well as the fuel line. Turn your petcock to off, pull that fuel line off, and that gas tank will slide right back. When it slides back, you can pull this vent line off here as well, and the gas tank will come right out. Alright, let me get that off real quick and cut the camera back on. Alright, guys, got the gas tank off. Normally there would be a plastic cover that goes over this that you just slide back and it comes out, kind of protects the bottom of the gas tank. Also, there would normally be a screw here, or bolt here, like it's an odd size, like a 7 millimeter or 6 millimeter or something like that holds this cover on. The little holder here for the coil. So you just unplug the coil, take that bolt out naturally, and slide this thing out of the way to get access to this rear timing hole. I couldn't find my 14 millimeter socket, so I just got a big old 24 millimeter socket. So I just got a big gear wrench. You could probably do this with an adjustable, but sometimes, like that one right there, they can be real tight. And these things are made out of aluminum, so it doesn't take much to strip them. You really want some kind of closed in, a socket or a wrench to get those off, just to keep from messing those up, because these weren't too terribly tight, but sometimes they get to be real tight. So just pull those all the way off. And next order of business is taking the timing hole cover out. It's over here on the right side. This plug right here. It's a 6 millimeter Allen. You can do that with a regular Allen wrench, but I like this. I like this one with the socket on it, or the 3/8 inch end better. Also, once you get that out, the timing hole, you'll need to remove this back plate back here where the pull start normally goes. There's 3 10 millimeter bolts there, and that'll expose the 17 millimeter crank bolt, so you can rotate the crank around to get it at top dead center. So let me pull this off and get these 3 bolts out here, and then I'll cut the camera back on. Alright guys, got the timing hole off and the rear cover off back here. I went ahead and stuck, this is a 17 millimeter socket with a 3/8 inch drive ratchet on that crank bolt, and that's to rotate the crankshaft over. This thing rotates clockwise. Normally these don't have pull starts on them, but the old 450s, 400s had a pull start, and the pull start comes off the top, so I think about it rotating in the clockwise position. Normally when you turn them the wrong way, it makes a funny noise. This will just pretty much be smooth up and down, but you turn it the other way and you almost hear sounds like gears turning. I think that's actually the one-way bearing not spinning, going the wrong direction when you turn it the wrong direction, so you can kind of tell which way you're supposed to go. Alright, and what I usually do to start off with, to get this thing at top dead center, what you want to do is have this is the intake valve. You'll want the rocker arm to go down and come back up, and then as you're rotating the motor around, it'll come down, come back up, and as the piston actually will be down, as it starts back up, that will be top dead center. On the compression stroke is where you want the valves to be when you adjust them. And normally in that case, when you're at top dead center in the compression stroke, you'll have movement in both the front and the rear valve. If you do it to where it's on the exhaust stroke, one valve will be tight normally. So that's what I normally do. And you'll need to rotate this thing around. I'll about have to look and see which, because these things have different marks on them from time to time. But usually it'll have most Hondas have 2 tick marks. I really don't know what that's for, other than to show you that you're getting close to the timing mark. So it'll have 2 tick marks, and then an F mark, which is when it fires, and then a T mark, which is when you're at top dead center. It usually has a T with a line beside it, and you just line that line up with this little that little notch. You see a little notch in the side there? Line the line up with that little notch, and that's at top dead center. So let me rotate this thing around and we'll see what it's doing. You just rotate it kind of slow and see where you're getting movement. Okay, now you're you can see here the exhaust valve's going down. Alright, now the intake valve is going down. Okay, now we should be starting up on the compression stroke. Some people take the spark plugs out of these things. It makes it a little easier to turn over. I just find it kind of a waste. It's just one more thing to do, so I leave it in. Sometimes it's a little tougher to get it to turn over at that point, but you can still do it by hand. So you just rotate this around slow until you see one of those tick marks that I was speaking of. Okay, so I didn't see the 2 tick marks. I don't know if I skipped them or they may not be on this bike, but there you go. You actually can see the F right there, and the line for the F is right below the actual letter F. There you go. You kind of see the F right in the very center of the hole. So that means the next line we come to will be the T mark. You don't have to rotate it very far before you get to the T mark. Okay, there it is. And then look in here, there's the T. There, perfect shot right there. T with the line, and it's lined up with the notch in the block there. So that should be top dead center. Then you check your valves. You can actually hear, usually wouldn't have that much play in it, but here both of them have movement. So that's what you're looking for. Okay, so now on these, you'll need to grab a filler gauge, and like I'd said before, 10 millimeter wrench and a screwdriver to turn these. Yeah, I got a book here with I've printed out a lot of the Honda clearances, torques, and things like that for motor rebuilds. I got one for 420 just to keep up with the valve clearance. the intake on this is 0.15. That's 15 hundredths. That's metric, and then the exhaust is 0.23, and then that's 6 thousandths in standard measurements, and 9 thousandths for the exhaust, and that's what you need to set the valve clearance for. All right, let me get these adjusted, or get these feeler gauges, and I'll come right back. All right, guys, back again. Got the feeler gauge here. Like I said, that's 6 thousandths on the intake and 9 thousandths on the exhaust. You're going to about have to take my word for it, because these feeler gauges are about wore out, and you can barely read that. That's the 6 thousandths. I usually bend them up on the edge a little bit because it makes it a little easier to get to. The other one I got, I just wound up that set of feelers, didn't have a 9 thousandths, so I got another one here with a 9 thousandths for the exhaust. So I'm going to do the exhaust first just to show you how it works. You can stick it in there. It actually goes, but if you picture this as a bolt, it goes between that bolt and the top of the valve. There's a little hole there. This one here has no resistance whatsoever because the valves are that far out of adjustment. So what you do is break that nut loose. I'm not real sure. I'd hope these things have been adjusted before, because it looks like the head's been off of it, but maybe they haven't. And then I'll take this small screwdriver and run that down. I'm going to have to cut the camera off because I can't do this with two hands. But what you do is stick the feeler gauge in there and tighten that screw down until you get some resistance, like that there. And that ain't probably ain't very far from being on right there. Do it till you get some resistance on this on the feeler gauge. You want it to slip in and out of there, but have a little bit of drag. If you get it pretty close, it won't rattle on you. So do that. Get it where you got a little drag on your feeler. Hold your center bolt or screw with the screwdriver, and then keep your wrench on there, kind of like this. Hold this on there like that. Hold on to the screwdriver and turn that wrench to tighten it down. I've had them in some cases where you turn the wrench and it tries to turn the whole center bolt, and that throws your whole throws your whole valve adjustment off. So you want to hold that center if you got a little drag on your feeler gauge. You don't have to leave the feeler gauge in there like that. I just do to kind of act as a little insurance. So I'm going to do this side, flip over and do the back, and then that's pretty much it. But I will show you how to put all this stuff back together. It doesn't take long. Alright guys, so I got them adjusted up. The feeler gauge will slip in there. You have to put a little pressure on it, and it's got just a little bit of resistance. That's what you're shooting for. So now it's just a matter of putting it all back together. Put your valve covers back on, kind of snug them down. Put your timing hole cover back in, and the 3 bolts on the recoil, or well, where the recoil is supposed to go, and bolts on the gas tank. And I might show this thing cranking up. I wish I would have cranked it up before I adjust them, but like I said, you wanted to do this cold, so you could just to tell the difference between the rattle. But I'll cut the camera back on in a sec when we fire it off and let you hear how smooth it is. Alright guys, try to fire this thing up. It's still missing a few parts here. The air filter, lid, and all that. The owner still got it. This is kind of a work in progress. So this thing may rattle just a little bit right when it first cranks, but once the oil gets to the top end, it should quiet down pretty quick. It's got very little tick to it now. The valves are good and tight. Alright guys, appreciate you checking out my video. I'll be posting some more. I'm actually going to start working on a 680 Rincon motor right now, putting it back together, so I'm going to do some videos on that. Just finished up this Arctic Cat, but I didn't, kind of in a rush on it, so I didn't get any videos on it, doing a top end on it. So let me get that Arctic Cat buttoned up, and then I'm going to start on a Rincon. Also, hit that like button, subscribe, post any comments. I usually try to reply back to them pretty quick. And if you got any questions about any of this process here is pretty much the same for 420. Well, it's identical on the 420 and the 500, especially these newer ones. The 450's about the same lines. All of them pretty much the same operation. Maybe a couple different bolts here and there. So, like I say, hit the like button, subscribe, ask me any questions. I'll get back with you. Y'all have a good night.